Here with me at Post 9 to discuss what investors are focusing on and what lies ahead for the company is Wedbush's Dan Ives. You see there, Tesla down 1%. So, Dan, year to date, it's actually kind of flat. It's been quite a ride. Yep. It goes down to 175 and pops back up to current levels. Over the course of the year so far, also because earnings estimates for the year have gone down, it's, stated PEs from like 65 above 80 now. Yep. So where does that leave us? I mean, what does the company have to show in order to convey that there's some progress on the important stuff?
I think two dynamics going on. One is the demand story, specifically in China. It's that turnaround. I think we saw it so far in 2Q. The big focus will be Musk talking about that second half of the year. And then the biggest thing, too, is pricing. I mean, you're talking about a company that, as we've talked about a lot, cut prices a lot the last year. Now you've seen a stabilization on prices. That's important in terms of the gross margin, call it 16.5%, 17%. But then the big reason the stock's up, it's about that AI robotics play. Robotaxi day, I'd expect Musk to actually give a date. We'll call it early to mid-October. And these are the important things right now that have really been, I'll call it a bit of a renaissance of growth for the comeback kid, Tesla.
They're important things definitely for the stock and how it trades. I mean, how important, at least anytime soon, is that going to be for the company itself in a tangible way?
Yeah, I think from a stabilization, it's about EV demand. Demand clearly has started to stabilize. And you saw GM clearly pulling back a bit from an EV strategy. Tesla's doubling down. Do they talk about that sub $30,000 vehicle, call it in 2025? Do they give the roadmap to where you could look at 500,000 per quarter, get on that run rate to we'll see 2 million into 2025? Then investors, that stabilizes the story. And then really the cherry on top of the sundae, or really what could be the sundae, is the AI story, the robotics play, FSD, autonomous. That's really ultimately how you get to a trillion, $2 trillion valuation.
500,000 per quarter is like up 10% or so from here, we'll call it, right?
Yeah, and up better than down, right? I mean, that's the most important thing in terms of that trend that we're heading toward.
And what are the assumptions about overall EV demand, right? Because the whole story has been, sure, market share of Tesla is going to go from near 100% down to something else as everybody else rolls out EVs. But what's the overall pie growing at this point, or is it growing anymore?
Yeah, clearly slowed. I mean, you saw the boom come off the rose, and we've seen Detroit, in terms of GM, Ford pull back, others have pulled back. A lot of the startups have really fallen, off the cliff. Yeah. And that has led to Tesla gaining share, but China's really the story. I mean, China's the hearts and lungs of the Tesla story. Stabilization there, despite what we see BYD, NIO, and others, that's going to be the key, showing that we're seeing strength in terms of the second half, but also stabilization from a gross margin. I'm sure LeBeau will talk about that in terms of where you feel like the worst is behind you. If that happens, that's also why right now a lot of bears, they're in those caves, not understanding what's happened to Tesla over the last 3 months. It's really now about that stabilization happening from Musk and Tesla.
When it comes to the policy piece of this, of course, Musk obviously very provocatively is out backing Donald Trump for president again, kind of doesn't mind, or maybe thinks he'd be okay with getting rid of EV credits or whatever might happen in that scenario. How would that play through with Tesla's business?
Yeah, so if you think about the Trump trade, so if Trump ultimately got into the White House, the view is negative for EVs because the $7,500, the rebate would go away. Yeah. Negative for GM, Ford, Detroit. The reason bullish for Tesla, that would give them a price and scale advantage. The other thing it's viewed is that if Trump got in the White House, could that fast track FSD autonomous relative to what we're seeing in terms of playing out versus China? On the other hand, if you look at a Harris ticket, could that be pro-EV for Detroit, maybe anti-Tesla, just because it goes back to the view that Musk has really been a background noise under Biden administration and a Trump administration? Is that something that'd be more front and center? And that's why I'd say Tesla's part of that Trump trade to some extent.
And when you say, the potential for fast tracking full self-driving, is that because you feel as if, or the company feels as if, currently regulators are just very skeptical about permitting any of these, further rollouts? Yeah,
well, clearly a lot of noise around Tesla story, and a lot of it, warranted, but the regulatory environment is viewed, if a Trump White House, you maybe have less regulation, potentially could fast track some of that FSD autonomous, depending where that goes for Tesla. But then it also speaks to what's happened in China. China is the opposite, where you're really seeing that kind of fifth gear in terms on the FSD autonomous side. And that's why I'd expect Musk to talk about the political race going into November tonight in the call. But no doubt, even though bullish Trump where he is, ironically negative for EVs. And that's all part of this Rubik's Cube that investors are trying to figure out.
Alright guys, this is the part of the video where I'm going to break down the stocks that were mentioned in the CNBC clip. Today they talked about Tesla and how it's a generational opportunity. Today they just reported earnings. It looks like they're selling off. They ended the day around $247 and now they're trading at $235 and we're still headed lower. I just wanted to start with the intraday chart so we could look at the earnings price action right after market. Here's the 180-day 4-hour chart, guys. You can see this takes into account that selling off after earnings, and we're right back at this previous low from when we started to drop down initially. If we don't hold this 233 level, guys, we're going to break down. The next support level would be this descending trend line, this multi-year trend line, this red line. I'll show you in a bigger chart here in a second. And if we can't hold that, we'll come back to 215 and chug around. Now this is the daily chart for Tesla. This is not taking into consideration the sell-off from earnings. Price action is now down here around this gray trend line at 233. If this is your first video, the green line is the 200-day moving average and the blue line is the 45-day moving average. So you can see back here through April, May, and June, we almost went perfectly sideways, holding that 45-day moving average, and then we rocket shipped up from 190 to 270. Had a sell-off, and now we've been kind of chopping around. Initially, I thought this was going to be a bullish flag pattern, as you can see pretty clearly, with lower highs and higher lows and meeting right in the middle. But now with this price action from earnings, we're back down here at 233. So when we open up tomorrow, we will have a gap on the chart and price action will start all the way down here around 233 as of right now. If we do not hold this area, guys, this is the trend line I said we'll come back to. It's a multi-year trend line. We got rejected at it for years and years and years. I was saying on this whole breakout, I wouldn't be surprised if price action makes its way back down and makes this multi-year resistance a support before going higher. I did sell my position around 266 on this huge sell-off day, and now that price is around 233, I'm definitely interested in looking to buy back. For the bullish case, you need Tesla to hold 233, start consolidating, and then head back to the upside. For the bearish case, you're going to want the price action to go straight through 233 and continue going lower, and or chop around at 233 and then continue going lower. Either way, 233 is going to be an important level to watch on Tesla. So those are just my thoughts and opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the breakdown. Smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.